we've got all of the regular participants as well as Steve. Also, I'll call the meeting to order at 1 o'clock. The first step on our agenda is to approve the agenda. I do have one item I'd like to add to the agenda. And when we get down to new business, I completely passed over any comments or discussion, rather, of the CO1 annual committee report that's due at the end of October. I'd like to spend at least a few minutes discussing that report and any comments we may have with regard to preparing the report. I put it on the agenda a couple of meetings ago just to make sure we didn't forget about it and have to have a last minute exercise in getting it out. And so I completely forgot about it on this meeting. So in new business, I'll add the CO1 annual reports. Anybody have any other additions or comments, questions on the agenda?
Nope.
Okay. If not, I'll just consider it to be approved. Well, we don't need to take a vote on that. Minutes of the September 3 meeting, our preceding meeting, are up for approval. Any comments, corrections, additions to those minutes?
It looks good to me.
Okay, I'll make one comment on it. If you go down through it, and I think it's in particular on the additional items that we considered on the, in addition to what was in the work group listing of sections that came to us, we did consider 3 additional sections or topics. The way it reads, I think it says will be sent or words to that effect. Those 3 and the 2 other items up in unfinished business, which we did complete last meeting, none of those have actually been sent yet to the work group, and that has to do with the what I'm going to refer to as the package to send to the work group. They're all included in that package. So if and when we do send forth that package, that part of the minutes will have been accomplished. But as of right now, none of that has been sent to the work group. That's just a clarification of what's in the minutes. Okay, anybody have anything they want to add, subtract, change in the minutes? No. Okay, if not, I'm going to consider them to be approved or consensus. Okay, next item is public comments. Technically speaking, Steve, you're a public member of the association. If you care to make any comments at this time, you're welcome to.
He stepped away from his camera, so I don't know if he's there.
Well, I didn't look down and see that, so we'll continue on without.
Yeah, we might need to offer public comments again.
Okay. All right, we're going on now to unfinished business. There's an unfinished business item that I didn't add to the agenda. That'll come up a little bit later. The C04 second reading did in fact take place. That's our committee resolution. Did in fact take place at the board meeting on Wednesday evening. There was a minor wording change to it. I don't have the copy in front of me, but where it says the review of resolution actions would be done in compliance with the attachment to B01. Compliance was deleted and replaced by adhered to. The attachment would be adhered to. I don't have the exact wording. The compliance was effectively removed and replaced by the word adhered or adhered to. There was a discussion about the appropriateness of the word compliance, and to make it a little bit longer story short, an agreement was made to delete that word and put in another word. That changed nothing with regard to the amendment we wanted to have made to indicate how resolution actions, meaning in particular amendments as well as new resolutions are processed. But anyway, I just wanted to report that as we have been carrying it as the second reading as an unfinished business. It's now complete. All right, more to the point, and really the principal task of this particular meeting deals with the work group and information to go to the work group. Now, the work group did have a meeting yesterday in the admin building. Again, the work group is Doug Parks, Camilla, myself, and Jennifer Cropper from the Communications Committee. It was after I had made some comments and proposals regarding where we were on our review of the bylaws, the summary that came from the work group to us, and that we had effectively finished reviewing everything and had prepared proposals, or where we didn't feel we could, without further guidance from the work group. I'm getting a feedback. Hopefully it's not for me. Okay, let me keep going. No more feedback. After I had explained to the work group where we were and what we were preparing to do, and had agreed to proceed with at our last meeting, the work group has decided to wait for us to come to the work group with what I'll call again a complete package of our efforts, that we had completed our full review to the best of our ability and to the extent that we felt we could. When we got to that point, we would be sending to the work group that information. Okay, what you have in front of you, or I should say in front of you, what I sent around earlier this week is that proposed submittal, if I can put it that way, to the work group. It's in two parts. One is a status report, which is a modification of the status format we used earlier. And the second part is the actual package of our review or our proposals for each of the summary items on the that we received from the work group to be working on. And what I'm really doing is bringing it forward to the committee to determine if that's ready to go to the work group. If it's not, what we need to do to get something in place to go to the work group. Now, one final comment on that, and then I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk about this. When we get something to the work group, the work group will begin its study of what's in there. The timing as to when they do that is probably, or perhaps 2 weeks after we send it forward to them, our input. And that, of course, puts out at some future date when the work group sends something, whether it's piecemeal or the entire package, back to us. But at any rate, from the time we send something to the work group, it'll probably be about 2 weeks before the work group actually starts working on it. So anyway, that's all the background of where we are, and I'm opening it up to any comments as what's before you and for me on the material to go to the work group. And Steve, you don't have any of this information, I know, so you're going to have probably difficulty understanding some of what's going on here. But as we go forward, even without the formal approval action of the board of directors, I'm going to keep you in the loop on actual material in hand. So anyway, Laura and Bob, what do you think about the materials that the status report as well as the summary itself? And they're intended to go together. I think I explained that they're intended to go together. I did not try to test my document manipulation and try to make them all one document. but they do go together. This is the review status document itself. On the left-hand column, it indicates the pages on which those topics, bylaw section topics are discussed. And then there's also the status. Virtually all of the status indicators are that we've made a proposal, specific proposal to the bylaws work group, or we have requested or are requesting additional guidance, clarification, however it's expressed in our input. Anyway, open for comments. How forward do we go now, or where do we go now?
All your documents look good to me, Jim. So I'm okay with, submitting everything in one group, one package. If that's what, we feel is best. If is that easier for the work group to get all of our information all at once? As a member of
the work group, I'm not going to try to speak for everybody else, but I think out of the meeting we had yesterday, the work group meeting we had yesterday, that I think that was certainly a better approach for the work group to get it all, figure out what they want to do with it. And I'm saying I'm included in that, but the work group figure out, okay, we've got everything. Now where do we want to go forward from here? I think I don't think there's any disagreement among the work group members on that.
Okay. That makes sense to me because, we don't want any piece of it to get lost. We want to, if it's all together, then you can't say, oh, well, I presented this one and should have brought it back, things like that. So I think having it all concise into one package is the way to go.
Bob, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree, because if you look at the sections and then the status, I think we made it very clear that if there's any conflicts, we've identified them and we've covered everything. So you're giving them a complete package, and hopefully we didn't miss anything. To the best of our knowledge, we haven't.
Well, all of and I've confirmed this more than once, all of the sections that came to us from the work group are accounted for in this package that would be sent to them. So we've covered everything that was sent to us. The question now is, have we covered it in a manner or that the work group wants us to cover it in? And again, there are several areas where we did not make specific proposals. Options were discussed, but we did not make specific proposals indicating to the work group that we do, before we feel we can go forward, we need some kind of guidance from the work group. That does exist with several of those items.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If not the primary, the principal objective of this meeting is to make sure, to agree that we're ready to go to the work group with this package. We can vote if we want to. This committee generally does not vote unless there's something really, a difference of opinion, if I can put it that way. I'm ready to go with it. I'm the one to put it together, so I better be ready.
If you feel it's ready, I feel it's ready.
I'm in agreement.
I agree.
All right, there is one thing that I think can be done and should be done. If you print out I'll call it the second attachment or our action attachment, I think the attachment name is something like bylaw summary. I would like to add a cover sheet to that to just indicate that this is our input in so many words. I'll make all of this a status report as well as this attachment. I'll I'll make it an as of today date. In other words, a cover sheet that will go on here to identify what this is, the date of it, and so that you don't just print it out and start out with this, and you wonder what, somebody prints it out and wonders, well, what is this thing? What I will do is go ahead and make a cover sheet for it. I'm not sure if I can figure out how to avoid starting with page number 1 and have to renumber the numbers on the status report, page numbers, but if I have to do that, I'll do that as well. All right, with the proviso that I'll go ahead and add a cover sheet of one type or another to this attachment, then I'll proceed to send it on to the work group. I'll get that done hopefully in the next day or so. It shouldn't take that much effort to do it. And Steve, I will send you a copy. You will be on the in addition to going to the work group, everybody on the committee will be copied on what goes to the work group. And Steve, that'll include you as well. And in the future, we're obviously going to be doing more work. Let's put it that way. It's I don't want to try to get into how all this is going to come together, but more work is going to have to be done before something actually goes to the board of directors. Beyond that, I don't think.
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good summary of what happened. And even though we had a short meeting yesterday waiting for this composite document, I think it's safe to say that I think that everybody there really kind of felt, in view of some of the recent litigation we've had, is that it's going to cause us to dive a little bit deeper into the bylaws. And I know that Jim is certainly amenable to helping us get to the point that we need to be. And, hence we had the word, what was the word we took out and put something else?
In the resolution, C04. Yeah, we took out the compliance and put in adherence with, or with,
Right.
I don't mean the exact word, but changed the word.
Right, because, there was some feeling that compliance is sort of a measure term that shows that you are measuring and doing what you need to do. And I thought it was rather clever at the end of the board meeting, but there's some nuances and changes that our attorney is asking us to work on, and just to get these bylaws not cleaned up, because and I hate to even use that word around Jim Trummel, because you guys have worked relentlessly on this whole thing, and it's very, very admirable. But I think as situations change in HOAs, we just have to remain open to knowing that we are going to have to do this. That's all.
Okay. All right. Well, to wrap up, the action will be for me to get this on the way of the work group, and the one thing I'll do is put a cover sheet over the action items attachment, and each of the members of the committee and our liaison will get a copy will be copied on the email that goes to the work group members. And Camilla, I'm going to send it to the work group members individually, yourself, Doug, and Jennifer. Okay, let's move on to new business. The one new business item that was added to the agenda is the report that goes out as of the end of this month, no later than the end of next month, and that's the annual report of the committee. It's not my intention today to try to sit here and write the report. I just want to have some discussion of what should go in the report. I don't know, Josh, if you're still there handy, can you put up that CO1 report attachment.
What is that, the government's document one, or what was the title?
It's the attachment to resolution C01.
Oh, the eligible to vote.
No, this is not in, that's not in that
I don't
package.
believe I have that one.
Okay, well, I didn't send it around in the excuse me, the package of materials for this meeting. It was in the past materials. All right, I'll just go down. There's 5 sections to the report. The first section is just not tabulation, but a listing of the committee members and the status on their the term that they're serving. And that can be taken straight off the website page for our committee. The next item is the summary of major activities during the reporting period. We did not have any committee activity from the end of the last reporting period. Would have been September 30th, year 2000. From that period through whatever our first meeting of the committee was this year, somewhere maybe April. Of course, there were no meetings, and since then, our primary, not necessarily our only activity has been the work on the bylaws. We've had a couple of other activities, like we worked up an amendment to the C04 resolution, and we've continued to work somewhat off and on the governing documents review. But that's basically our activities this year through this reporting period. Does anybody have anything else they can think of that we should be adding to that?
No.
Okay. This discussion doesn't end here. This is just to continue to be prepared to make up the report.
Right.
Problems encountered. Next section is section 3. Problems encountered and assistance required. I don't know that we've had problems that have interfered with us accomplishing our committee duties. I think under here it would be appropriate to acknowledge the considerable assistance that Josh has given us in being able to conduct our meetings. And that comes under the assistance required. We've gotten, I think, pretty significant, substantial assistance. As far as problems encountered, I don't know that we've really encountered any serious.
We're getting better. We're getting better. The only problems are if we can actually log in, so that took a little bit, but we're finally, I think.
That's probably out there air.
Exactly. It's not able to get our duties done. We're just, sometimes we have a little glitch and can't log on quickly. So. Okay.
The next item is request for items to be considered for inclusion in the next OPA budget. This is an area where we need to be considering an input. And I don't know that we can input dollars, but we can input where there's a potential for the association having to expend some money in the next budget, which would be starting May 1st, which I guess budget planning wise is not all that far away. At some point in time, if something goes to a bylaws amendment process, that means going to a referendum, whenever it occurs, whether it would occur before or after this coming May 1st. I have my difficulty believing that any effort, including what we're working on now, would go to referendum before May 1st, unless it is something to do with events surrounding or having to be taken into consideration with regard to the ongoing litigation. That could change the immediacy of a bylaws amendment. Let's put it that way. But at any rate, anything that goes to, whenever it goes to, an amendment of the bylaws will require a referendum whenever that occurs, and we can anticipate it on our side of the effort as it stands now to be in the next fiscal year. Another consideration, and this is one that could very well occur in the current fiscal year, and that would be whatever cost is associated with our association council reviewing bylaws recommendations for change before the at some point in time, at least before the referendum. And that could, again, timing there, that could very well be before the start of the next fiscal year. It could be after the start of the next fiscal year. It's hard to say, but I think we need to identify potential costs resulting from effort that we are deeply involved in one way or another. Would be referendum costs and attorney review, our association council review costs, assuming that his costs for doing that would be in addition to whatever financial terms agreement exists, with the association, I'm not aware of. And so can anybody think of any other possible costs that we can come up with? Our compensation, of course, we can add that in there if you want to.
Does the association, Josh, use the Teams format? I mean, do you have to pay for that? Is that something that if we wanted to make sure that we still have this option moving forward for whenever, we can't meet in person, does that cost? Is that something that each committee would need to ask for, or?
No, that's
Okay.
something that we definitely have. It's part of the larger Microsoft Office license that we all use. So
Okay, so that,
we'll always have Teams available to you.
okay, so then that doesn't have to go in our report then as a request. Okay,
That's a good point. Thank you.
that was the only thing I could think of that would be like an additional cost for us. But obviously mentioning, putting in there so that everybody's aware that when we do put this to a referendum, then that costs money.
Right.
Yes.
The last item is recommendations for board action. The one thing that I can think of that would be potentially appropriate to put in here, just to alert the board to the fact that, there is an effort going on regarding potential revisions, amendments to the bylaws, and they need to be prepared for that, and in particular the financial cost of that, not only for the next fiscal year, but potentially the current fiscal year, depending on timing requirements for any amendment proposals that come forward, other than what we're talking about now. We're getting very close to it being difficult, probably, to go through the entire work group review process, our committee action process to the board review, then you have public hearings, potentially attorney review of proposed amendments, and still stay within the current fiscal year. That's speculation on my part.
Well, Jim, I would agree with you, and I think we are well advised to let the board know to budget money for a revision of the bylaws if that becomes necessary, because even in the early parts of this litigation that we're under, we've identified areas that maybe are not what we want them to be now. Certainly were what we wanted them to be when they were written, but they're in 2008, but not now. So I would rather see that we alert that we're probably going to need money to accomplish this objective, which would be the sending it out to a lawyer to write and to have it revised, have our bylaws revised and brought up to the expectations that the legal community and I guess also the people of Ocean Pines might have at this time.
Okay, well, what'll can be done on the report is the sections 4 and 5 kind of flow together. One is budgetary considerations, and then the section 5 can also include you need to be prepared to do some work and spend some money. Now, those are just some thoughts from me and thoughts that you folks have. What my proposal is that it's not intended to come to a final agreed upon report. I'll put what we've talked about so far into a draft copy of a report, get that sent around, and then we'll have it for further consideration before we reach the due date at the end of October. So I'll take what we've talked about today, put it on a form in the forms of a draft, and send it around for us to have to review and begin to be prepared to finalize our report well ahead of time, instead of sometimes in the past it's been a kind of a last minute hassle to get done.
Sounds
All
good.
right, let's move on here. We're moving pretty fast here, folks. I don't know, has anybody got any happy hour plans? It's Friday afternoon. All right. The next two items are going to be, one is going to be the governance document review, and the other we need to talk about the next meeting, because we haven't scheduled out beyond this meeting yet. All right, Josh, can you put up the governance document review page? There it is.
You got it.
Okay. Let me where we are. Let me take it section by section. The B section, the board resolutions. We're kind of held up here. One of the things, Camilla, we're looking for some input from the board on the B07 petitions resolution. Now we went through the situation with regard to the petition to amend the capital costs provision in the bylaws, and that referendum, that petition ultimately resulted in a referendum, and the referendum was completed earlier this year. As a result of that, is there something that needs to be considered in the B07 resolution? And I think that's something that the board has to consider. We need the board to think about, or at least somebody on the board to think about, in view of what happened in the petition process. Does that resolution need to be revised in some manner?
I thought we had done that. Is this a referendum that came because of slope done?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, that we raised the, or we lowered the ceiling on what the board could allot.
That's the result of the referendum that did occur, but is the petition resolution adequately worded, properly worded within the bylaws requirements? So I can put it that way, because the original rejection of the petition, was effectively based on it not the petition not stating a question to be answered yes or no, but actually the petition was pretty well patterned after what's included in the resolution.
Okay, I see where you're going with that, Jim. Why don't you and I have a little talk about that offline, because I think that that's not going to take very long to craft, and I can take it to the next board meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, we can check that out. That's being, as far as this governance document review, the B07 currently in the review process still stands. Now, the rest of the Bs, the rest of the B resolutions are well past a review date, but we're holding on to them, holding on to requesting a review until we get past the B07. Let's just leave that situation as it is and until we actually resolve the B07.
Okay, Jim, I will offline schedule an appointment with you to see you next week. And maybe we can talk about this and get it put together in a half an hour or so and then take it to the board.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Okay.
I'm going to be in town all week and beyond. All right, let's move down to the committee resolutions.
Jim?
Yeah.
Jim,
Yes.
to be clear, nothing in the B category changes and all the notes remain the same.
Let's stay the way it is. The yellow can come off of the
Will do.
B0.
I'll take all the yellow off everything.
And we'll just wait until we resolve B07 and then we'll move on from there.
Okay.
All right, under the Cs, all right, C03 is the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee. This C03 did go to a first reading at the board meeting on Wednesday. I think you could probably delete all of what's there, Bob, and put some reference to C03 at first reading September 15th.
Okay.
C04 is actually in the C signature cycle. The board approved the amendment with that deletion and substitution of deletion of compliance and substitution of adhere or adherence. I'm not sure what the wording is. Doesn't make any difference.
I'll look at the video.
Okay, it is in the signature cycle. I think you can probably. You probably can change that last review date to the current date, or September 21, and then review 2 years out with a note of approval at the meeting.
September
15th.
22, right?
Yeah. Well, we're doing a 2-year review.
Okay, so it would be 23 then.
23, yeah. And the same would go, well, okay, I'm sorry, I was looking at C03. C03 is not complete, so nothing needs to be changed other than its status.
All right. I'll change the status.
Yeah, okay, there's nothing on the remainder of that page. Okay, the Communications Advisory Committee had a second reading also on Wednesday, and their second reading was approved without any amendments. You can delete all that and say second reading approved, whatever, similar words to the C04, and change the review and last review, next review dates.
Jim?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep interrupting because I know I'm supposed to sit here like a flower on the wall, but be that as it may, if you'll recall in that meeting, Robert's Rules of Order have been changed, updated something, and Colette Horn pointed out to me that a second reading is not needed, and therefore I didn't do the second reading on that. I moved that the C04 into consideration for a vote, and it was approved. So there wasn't, all we have to do now is a first reading and then bring it back the next month for a vote.
Okay, I'm kind of searching for words. We're going to have to figure out some way of changing B01, because B01 includes a second reading. I'm getting hang on a second. I've got a restart. Okay, My computer's trying to make me restart, and I don't want to do that. Okay,
Tell it no.
sorry. We're going to have to look at, we're going to have to figure, that's a new one on me. Let me quit stumbling around here.
Yeah, that's Josh, are you here?
Yes.
Oh, is that what you heard at that meeting too? That when I got ready to do a second reading, that Colette had corrected us that we did not do second readings. We moved it as a motion in the second go around.
Which one was this for?
It was C04.
Well, it would apply to any resolution action. It's an amendment to a resolution, existing resolution, or a brand new resolution of some kind from scratch. The B01 is written to have two readings, but it again, without me not getting out the resolution and reading it exact wording, it's intended to mean that you cannot approve a resolution action without it being, excuse me, without it being considered twice. That's the real intent behind that. It's not intended to mean you have a first reading, then you think about it again on a second reading, and then you come back later and approve it. It's intended, and I'm reasonably certain that it reads that you cannot approve until you've had the second reading, but you can approve it on the second reading. I don't see there being a problem revising B01 to have a process read what what's been discussed, where you have to have a first reading, and then it comes back this subsequent to that for approval. It's just how you're going to word that.
All right, let me do a little bit of study on this. I will send Colette and Larry an email and ask them to provide me the citation that says there is only to be a first reading, and in the second month move that motion into for passage. So let me be clear what they were asking me to do, but at that meeting I can tell you with the C02, I told everyone what the motion was. So in essence, I did reread it again after the first reading, but that was also commensurate with the time that we voted on it.
Yeah.
Josh,
Is this C04 we're still on?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just looked at the tape and there was a vote to approve it.
Okay,
Okay.
so, Josh, C06, I think is really the one that's relevant.
Okay, I can look at that too.
And
That's
Colette,
the
if I recall correctly, Colette did the same thing with C06.
Let me
Yeah.
check the tape. I'll be right.
While we're waiting for Josh to come back, I want to make a note, or a comment rather, on several of them that
It was the same thing with C6. It was
Okay.
approved by vote on
So it
second
wasn't a
reading.
second reading, that was where we approved it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, when you have your follow-up communications on this, the intent, without going back and reading the actual words in B01, the intent is it has to come back to the board a second time before it can be approved. It doesn't have to be approved on the second reading, what the resolution calls the second reading. Doesn't have to be approved then. It can extend on for however long the board needs to resolve any issues it has with whatever the resolution action is, new or amended. But it has to be considered by the board. The board has to look at it twice, at least twice, I'm sorry, before it can approve it. But it can, when it comes up the second time, it can be approved. There's no No restriction on that whatsoever.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be looked at twice and then put off for a third consideration for approval. No.
Okay.
Now,
And I think we're in agreement on that one.
yeah, now if we need to make it easier for parliamentary rules to rewrite B01, I'm sure that can be done. But I just want to be clear on what the intent of B01 is. I think it's reasonably well expressed. Anyway, let's move on.
Jim,
Yeah.
question. Review date is changed on that one as well to September 23rd? 23 rather.
Yeah, it's September review, last review September 21, future 23.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same situation. You're going to be put in the same words virtually for form C04 and C06. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I wanted to clarify.
Okay, now the next was strategic plan committee, and this comment is going to apply to this 2 or 3 more as we go along and we get to them. They've been sent out messages to please review and let us know if there's any changes to be made. And I've not received any response. As far as I'm concerned, we should consider it's been reviewed. We can consider that been reviewed for lack of feedback this meeting and put another 2 years out. I don't think there's any need to keep going back and asking people, are you really happy with what you got?
Yeah, Jim.
Yeah.
When we ask them to review, if you don't get a response in a reasonable time, and we change the date, they can always review it at any point they want to.
Yeah, I don't know that I did at this last executive council meeting, which I think was in May. I don't think I made any comments about review, but that's a comment that can be made every meeting of the committees. That's the executive council. By whomever is the chair of this committee, that please continue to look at your own resolutions, and if you at any time you find something needs to be changed, go ahead and process a change without waiting for being asked sometime.
Right.
Okay. So on the C07, let's just go ahead and change from this September to two years out.
Okay, September 23.
Yeah. The comment on C08 can remain there. It's on hold until completion of the 2021 elections report. Well, it's not going to happen until there's a completed election. The reason for that comment is that the resolution, both C08 and M06, can be reviewed every election cycle, for that matter. The Executive Council Committee, that's C09, it's up for review this month. And it would be the president that would review that as the chairman of the committee. I don't think there's any good reason to ask the current chairman to review it. The reason being, it's sooner or later there's going to have to be a conclusion to this election, and then following that there will be an organization meeting with new officers. There may be some officers or all of them may continue in place, but that's not a given by any stretch of the imagination. And we should hold on to this when requesting a review until further notice is as good as anything to put in there.
So just leave it blank.
Let's just leave it blank. Yeah.
Okay.
The same thing goes on, not leaving it blank necessarily, on the next one, the environmental natural assets. There's not been any response. Let's just change the dates from September to this month to 2 years out.
To September 23rd?
Yeah.
Jim, I do want you to know, I did stay on Tom Janasek about that, and he said, yeah, I'm getting it to you, I'm getting it to you. And so, thank you for that.
Well, we'll get to that one here in a couple minutes. Golf is not due. Next one is marine advisory that Camilla referred to.
Yeah, Jim,
Yeah,
the one thing I noticed, if we start changing those that haven't responded to September 23, we're going to have them all do at the same time.
yeah.
We might be better to stick with the month and just move it out 2 years.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise it'd be impossible for us to deal with them if they all came through at one time.
Okay, let's do that. That's a good point. Let's just keep the stagger that exists in there. The reference that Camilla made was to C12. I put in there pending response from C12 liaison. Don't need to put his name in there, just put in C12 liaison. Instead of C04 chair to follow up, we're waiting for a response from the C12 liaison. Because you did have that in a message a week or so ago, whatever the topic was, I don't remember now. Might have been the work group. Okay, we have the same situation on recreations and parks. You can use the same months, but move it out 2 years.
Okay, so it'll be October 23 or 22.
No, 23. 2 months, 2 years from this year.
Okay, okay, you're right. Okay.
All right. I am at remiss on, we don't have anything for C14. That's a couple of months, well, more than a couple of months, over a year from now, due for review. I am remiss in what I should have done on C15. I have not asked them to do the resolution. I've got that marked in big red letters on my copy here. I'll get that done. I'll do that this weekend.
It's C15, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In the F series, F02 is still in the future. I'm sorry, F01. F02 did go to first reading at the meeting last Wednesday.
Okay, so that's first reading. Okay.
Same thing for F03. The Budget and Finance Committee resolution and F02 and 3 all went to a first reading at that meeting.
Okay.
And F04 has been recently taken care of. Camilla, do you know anything about where we stand on the compliance violations, CPI violations, DR violations, however they may be referred to? M01 says they go to the general manager, and from the general manager it goes to the attorney, for the attorney to go to court with them. Now, the resolution does in fact have a provision that the general manager can exercise an authority to go a different direction and go to the board, but that process has been or is being held up because of court backlog. That the courts are now, because of the pandemic circumstances that have been in existence, are not in a position to be handling anything but priority, if I can put it that way, priority
Criminal cases.
litigation. Is that something that's still in effect?
Well, I think as you heard at the meeting the other night that John Viola came forward with the house, for instance, that had the mold on it. And we had not taken that through a lawyer, but had simply taken care of it and are billing the people for it.
Right.
The courts are starting to catch up because people did use Zoom at the end, and they could use Zoom for everything but the criminal cases because we couldn't pick a jury online. So I was talking to Judge Kent when I was over in court yesterday, and she said she was starting to breathe a sigh of relief that her docket was getting a little bit lighter and things weren't all scrunched in. I think we're going to start to see continued improvement in that as we move down the line. So I'm not sure that anything in that really needs to be changed. I don't want to go changing an entire section based on recent experience when we know that the norm is really what we already had.
Yeah, but my concern about it, that's concerns perhaps too strong a word, is that we don't fall back into we have a resolution that changed the way in which violations are handled. And now, and I understand the circumstances, we effectively went back to the prior way of handling them. I just don't want us to just lapse into falling back onto a process without going back and changing the process that's not being followed. So it's just something that we can keep track of. Again, the question is not the question, but the point is we don't want to continue a temporary process that's basically the same as what we had before with a resolution that had a completely different approach to it.
Well, the resolution that we had that's on the books now was worded in the way that it was because based on our experience on Abbyshire, we had to have something that had more punch to it. And I think that the board and our attorney would be reticent to take that out because of this just sort of thing that happened. So I would for one agree with you, Jim, and think that we ought to leave it as it is right now. And if we find next year that the courts, that we've had to go back into lockdown because of the Delta virus, God forbid, but we need to keep an eye on it. But right now, I don't think anybody would really want to change it.
Okay. Bob, let's change the scheduled review date. I'm a little reluctant to schedule it for a year out from now, but let's give it a 6 month from now review date. I guess that would be what, March or even April, but March. Let's call it March. Just change it to March 22.
Okay.
And we can delete the comments. Or we can put in the comments simply revised next scheduled review date
Okay.
for court availability considerations or some such comment like that.
Okay.
The next two are not due enough. We've got, okay. Camilla, we're still hung up on animal control. This is one that.
Just a minute, you jumped the November 21. We should do something on that.
Yeah.
Give them some notice, heads up.
Okay. All right. Put in there that I will put in a request to the board to review that M02.
Okay.
A M04 is another 6 or 7 months out. M05, Camilla, this is where we need to get some feedback. This is one that in particular would be of interest. This is animal control. It would be of
Right.
interest to the police department.
And I sent that to the police department and asked by means of an email that I think I copied you on, and asked them to please review that and to get back to me. And to date, I've not heard anything, despite repeated requests.
It's okay with me that it's a board responsibility in the sense it's a board resolution, not a committee that involves a committee of any kind. It's a board policy resolution. It's okay with me if we just say it's been reviewed for lack of, don't have to write this down, but for lack of response and change the review dates.
Okay, or how about if we wait one more month? I think what I need to do is to send an email to John Viola. The police department reports to him, don't they?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask him to get on it and ask them to review the animal control policies that are found in, what is it, B0?
M05.
M05. Okay, I will ask John to see if he can accomplish what I couldn't.
To go back in time, the principal reason for retaining that resolution in the review process that was undertaken in the 2009, 2010, 11, 12 time period. There was a prior resolution on animal control. There was a proposal to eliminate that resolution, but the then chief of police wanted a resolution retained so that when his department had to take responsibility, or take charge of, not responsibility, but take charge of an animal, in particular dogs, because of the unavailability or immediate availability was not there for county animal control, that if the police department took an animal into custody, so to speak, that the police department could be able to charge reasonable fees for having maintained that dog if a dog in fact went back to its owner, and the owner in particular was an Ocean Pines member. That it had to do in particular with the Ocean Pines being able to assess a fee for having taken charge of a dog in particular running loose in the community. Other than that, that resolution, an animal control resolution, may very well have been deleted from the then book of resolutions and not there today. So that's a little background to that.
Okay.
The animal control responsibility is with the county. The police department does not have a direct animal control responsibility, but there's the contingency that there's an animal running loose and the animal control people are in Pocomoke and can't get here to pick up the dog running loose on Manquin Creek Road. And that's the history behind why we still have an animal control resolution. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have.
Got it.
All right, moving right along. The M06 resolution, there are several items in this review part, or comments part, I'm sorry. That's all going to have to be brought up again, but there's no sense bringing it up until there is another election report. Presumably, when this election somehow, some way gets concluded, the elections committee is going to have to put out a report. That's part of the M06 resolution. When that report comes out, I would like for this committee to review that and go back over some of our past concerns if they are not addressed in that report, and make our own comments back to the board and to the committee itself. The report goes to the board. There's no reason why we can't review it and make our own comments to the board as well as to the committee. But whenever the next elections report comes out, I would be asking the committee to bring back our comments that are referenced here. They're not referenced in any detail, but bring back our comments that are referenced here, plus anything else that we have that is or is not addressed in the report, and make our own feedback again on this to try to get some consideration for what we think needs to be looked at with regard to M06.
Okay. Now, do you want to talk to Steve Habiger about that, or would you like me to do that?
Well, Steve's a short timer right now. His term ends here another week.
Okay.
I don't think right now. I don't think you need to make any kind of feedback.
Okay. Carol is taking over that committee.
Carol Ludwig.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think there's any reason to make any feedback at this time. Any feedback might be to Lord Carol that she's got a report to file here sometime in the future. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Bulkhead maintenance. Okay, I guess somewhere along the line we did ask for review of this by the board, and we haven't heard anything back on that. That and the M05 were together at one point in time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Now, this may or may not be one that the board would want the Maritime Committee to look at. Probably would.
And which one is that, M?
07.
Okay.
Well, brief side comment in this, Steve. What this is, the governance document review is the complete book of resolutions. And what we have established, this is the committee initiative, and I've referred to a couple of times the resolution B01. That resolution is specifically titled Book of Resolutions. It's you can call it the mother of the Book of Resolutions. In that resolution, this committee is responsible for establishing a program of a review of resolutions to work toward keeping them up to date so that we don't have a situation 5 years down the road that we have all kinds of resolutions that have never been reviewed or are completely obsolete, not followed provisions in them, and that sort of thing. And that's what we're doing here. That's what this document is, the governance document review. That's what it has all of the resolutions, and we have established responsibilities and review dates, scheduled review date in for each resolution to be reviewed. And that's what we're going through right now. And we have not been keeping up to the date with this very well in our bylaws effort. And right now, this is probably our most attention we've given this in the last 4 or 5 months. All right, moving right along to the very end of this, M08. I have been deferring this for some time. And the reason for that is the possibility that in the bylaws review, there may be some reason to refer to this resolution or use this resolution in some manner. It would have been a part of the grouping of resolutions where we consider information referred to in the bylaws that's outside of the bylaws. For example, we talked about the financial management manuals, the procedures and policies manual, in our discussion of those provisions that refer to information outside of the bylaws, and whether or not this resolution could possibly have any kind of a role in that consideration. And I'm ready to say it's time to move on this. And again, I'm the one that's been holding off on looking at in this particular resolution. I will resolve to come forward with a recommendation to the committee as to what to do about this resolution. It is what I sometimes refer to as a blue sky resolution. We do everything in here and that the resolution says, and the sky will be blue all the time. And that's nice. It reads nice. The idea is nice. The resolution dates from 2011, 10 years ago. And it's really never really been followed through on. It calls for like biannual review of these documents. At the time this resolution was released in 2011, I'll just pick out the Financial Management Procedures Manual and the Financial Management Policy Manual. They had been last updated in 2006. Well, you look at them today, that's still the same date, 2006. So you can tell how well from 2011 to 2021 that's had an impact on the financial financial management procedures and policies manuals. So with that unhelpful comment from me, let me put it that way, I will come forward with a recommendation as to what we do with this particular resolution. Bob, put on there the CO4 chair will come back with recommendation at the next scheduled meeting, which we have to talk about next scheduled meeting, but at the next scheduled meeting, I will definitely come forward with a recommendation.
Okay.
Last but not least is the M09 search committee. I would not leave this, I would not change this in any way because what to do about the search committee is part of the package that's going back to the work group. That's an undecided element in our bylaws right now, so there's no reason to give it any consideration other than leaving it what it says now.
Okay.
All right. Does anybody have anything more they want to say about the governance document review? We've really gotten into it much deeper this time than we have probably in the beginning of the meetings since we started back in whatever it was, April or so, our first or call it post or in between pandemic meetings. That's as far as we've gotten into it in any real detail. All right, the only item left on the agenda, so to speak, is when do we meet next? There's unlikely to be a lot of activity in the next 2 weeks. In the next couple of days, the work committee will have in its hands what we talked about today, and I'm reluctant to say that the work group committee will be coming back to us with anything substantive in the next 2 weeks. It's certainly possible. I don't know, but I don't know that we need to. I don't know that we need to schedule a actual meeting 2 weeks from today.
So you want to? Are you suggesting then just to go back to, for now, the 1 month time frame?
Yeah,
or 3 weeks, or
how about if we schedule one 4 weeks out from today, or not today? Yeah, Friday, whatever Friday that is. I got it written down here, sir, somewhere.
That would be October 15, I think.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we have.
Okay. And if we need to, I can scramble and call together, see who's available for what time for an earlier meeting. Why did I hesitate? Okay, October 15th. I'm thinking of the end of the month, end of October report. So the 15th is well short of that, at least short enough to finalize the report. as far as everybody here, and this includes you, Steve, what's October 15th look like?
I'm fine with the 15th.
Yep, good for me too. As long as we can stick with the teams, because I'm not sure if I'll be in town or back at my full-time home.
Okay, well, 15th, I mean, Microsoft Teams is good for me. I'm having to flip my calendar in the
On your desk?
yeah, let me pick it up and move it a little bit. I'll disappear here for a second. Okay, I'm good. I'm good October 15th as well. So, all right, let's schedule. Of course, we don't know Keith's availability. I'll make sure I make a direct communication with him.
Okay.
Let's go and schedule for October 15th, Microsoft Teams at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
In the meantime, what I will be doing is, in addition to the in material of the work group, I will put down the thoughts, comments, and whatever that we talked about on the C01 annual report, and I'll send it out for further consideration and comments and in draft form, and we can bounce those back and forth between now and the 15th. But by the 15th, we can have something in ready to be adopted to be sent out for our report to the board of directors. We'll plan on that to be the process on that between now and then, have that ready to go.
Jim?
Approved at the October 15th meeting. Anything else? Steve, you're still with us, are you?
Yes, I'm still here. And
You got any comments you want to make on what you've seen and heard?
no, but I do want to thank you for including me, and I will look forward to sort of learning as I go.
Okay, as I said, we've got your application in process and the materials. I'm going to be sending out the work group, the materials to the work group, as well as this committee report. Although your participation in the reporting period actually will be very minimal and none as far as the committee members is concerned. But I'll send that out to you as well, so that you're involved in what's going on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Jim, I see you waving your hand. I got to get something out of in front of my screen here.
I have one quick question. If I can go back a minute, the package that you're going to send to the board with all of our recommendations, if you go to page 13.
The board or the committee? I'm sorry, go ahead.
The report that you prepared on page 13,
Okay.
at the very bottom, section D, there's a typo. You might
Hang on a
want to,
second. Page 13.
page 13.
Okay, hang on, I'm turning here.
Yeah, you have it page numbered 13.
Okay, where's the typo at?
It's associate members as committee members.
Yeah.
Down at D, the very second paragraph from the bottom, chapter 6. There's an extra T in there.
I'm looking here. Oh, okay. All right,
I missed
see.
that. I meant to mention it earlier and I just suddenly saw it on my notes.
I guess the spell check doesn't recognize stuff like that, because I did a complete spell check on the whole thing.
I know, I get caught every time with it.
I'll make sure that's changed. I'm going to run another spell check just to see if I missed it when it came up or missed it completely. Okay, I got that. I'll make sure that gets changed.
I have
good.
one quick comment before we go. Kind of on that same topic that Bob just was talking about in the report, though. When we had our discussion about how associate members could potentially become committee members and all of that. And we were talking about, Keith had brought up the, where the owner would have to designate their voting rights to that person. I don't know why I thought of it now, but if the owner gives their voting rights to the long-term renter or the associate member, can the owner reclaim those votes at any time? Even if that renter or the associate member is still actively serving on a committee? Like, let's say that owner gave away their particular votes for that household to their associate member renter, but then decides they don't like how this person is voting and they want their votes back. Can they do that? Would they be able to do that? It's just something that if it were to go to pass, I think we do need to think about, what do you then do? Like, how long is that term for? Like, does that associate member / renter only have those voting rights of abilities for a 1-year term at each year, or,
Well, that's something that would have to be considered in the details of any proposal. My personal thinking on that is anything that the owner authorizes an association action of some kind to be done in lieu of the owner himself or herself doing it themselves, whether it's voting, serving on a committee, anything would have to have in it. I don't think there's any way it could be done without there being a provision in it, in whatever kind of a document we're talking about. It would have to be revocable at any time by the owner. I don't see how it would be acceptable to the association for the owner to
never be able to reclaim them. Yeah.
To cede association rights to someone who is not an actual member without that member having an unequivocal right to revoke it.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's in the details of considering what's in our proposal of options to consider. Really, what it is. It goes back to the work group. Yeah, that's very much in the details. But I can't see probably the work group or certainly the board be agreeable to anything that could not be revoked in that kind of a context.
Okay.
I personally would not agree with it. Let's put it that way.
Right. Well, I just wanted to mention it because I'll forget later when we go back to discuss. So it's on record now that I had a question. So
you're on video now. Okay, folks. Anything else that's going on here that we need to talk about?
Yep, that's it.
All right. Well, it's now 2:23. We have no more items on the agenda. I'm not going to ask for a motion and a second to adjourn. Is everybody agreeable to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yep.
Okay. I'll consider it second, and I'll approve it even though I'm the chair of the committee. All right, folks, we're adjourned at 2:24, and thank you all for participating in the meeting. Appreciate it.
All right. See you in a month.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.